Presented by McDonald's of Glasgow, it's time for the Brown Sports Bag. From the heart of the Barrens, a weekly local sports machine. Alongside John Butler, here's your host, James Brown.
Well, John, we have no basketball coaches this week. It's a little bit shocking to just be the two of us again. We've had people just parading through here, you know. It's been a lot of fun, though.
It has been. We're not going to have any more basketball coaches for a while. They don't have time anymore.
Yeah, they're a little bit busy starting
that's exactly
tonight.
right.
But before we're going to talk about that here in the second segment, we're going to first start out, though, talking a lot about college football because we had the whatever Governor's Cup or whatever they like to call that thing on Saturday. And, we talked about this last week. It was going to be interesting, strength versus strength, weakness versus weakness out of Kentucky and Louisville as to which way it was going to pan out. And my goodness, Lynn Bowden, he decided it was going to be all about Kentucky because Louisville did not have an answer for him, but Kentucky seemed to have an answer for Louisville's offense.
It was dominant by Kentucky. I mean, they only threw it 2 times. For the whole
it's
game.
Just amazing, isn't it?
Yeah, I mean, since they've moved Bowden into the quarterback role for the receiver, they've gone 5-1, I believe, and they are just physically destroying team.
Yeah,
I mean, everybody knows what they're going to do. They're going to run it, and nobody. It's almost like Baltimore in the NFL.
Yes,
you
which we'll talk about that a little later in the show too.
It's teams literally. They cannot stop it, and I can't imagine anything more frustrating to play against a one-dimensional team that can't throw it, and they're just Kentucky is just beating up teams right now.
Yeah,
and they could easily be won another one because they had Tennessee beat.
Oh yeah,
and had it all the way down at the goal line and just remarkably could not score. But yeah, I mean, Bowden, the quarterback, he had 270 or 280 just rushing yards.
Yeah.
I mean, Kentucky put up 500 total yards of rushing for the most part, and they just wore Louisville out. And Louisville's been a good now Louisville's weakness is defensively. They have not been able to stop the run from anybody all year.
Yeah, this game definitely was a matchup of strength on weakness and strength on
weakness. I'm complimenting Kentucky, but
it
has not hurt Kentucky that during this run of only throwing, it seems like every game they play in a rain, just a monsoon.
Yeah.
I mean, it seems like every game is in bad weather.
They've dialed up the rain gods.
That's exactly right, but it's been great coaching job on both teams. I mean, Satterfield, just the culture he's turned around has been incredible. Yeah. But this is Mark Stoops to go all in when he made the change when he put Bowden in, and then the backup quarterback's healthy, but they're not going to play him.
No. Yeah, well, the last time we saw him, he was pretty shaky.
Right.
But here's the interesting thing. First of all, I feel like the theme of today's show is run the football and play defense because Kentucky has, and also, I mean, basically this starting probably with the last year's Super Bowl in the NFL and through part of this football season in the NFL and college football and probably even high school to some degree, we have seen the erasure of the idea that the future of football is like spread, throw it everywhere and that kind of stuff. And this is the cyclical thing of, I think, football in general.
Yeah.
Over time, what happens is somebody figures out we've got to do this in order to combat what they're doing. And what football at all levels had kind of gone to was smaller linemen, quicker linemen, throw the ball, get it to smaller receivers, fast people, get it into space and let people make plays. What we've seen in the NFL and what we've seen out of Kentucky with this transition here, they didn't have to make this transition, but in essence, they did have to make this transition. They decided this is the only way we're going to win, and they went to Bowden, a receiver at quarterback, and we're going to run the football because we can't throw it. And so if we're going to run the football, how are we going to do it? We're going to line up and just beat you senseless. We're going to bring back big linemen. We're going to bring back bigger running backs, more tight ends, and we're just going to run it down your throat and dare you to stop it. And this has been the evolution just in this year, I think, in football at all levels, and it's almost basically it's erased 70 years of evolution of football in some ways.
It'll last probably 2 years.
Yeah, and they'll figure it out.
Well, what has happened is that it's not that they're using bigger linemen. The linemen are been monsters for the last 10 years. Everybody's 300 pounds. What's the difference is that we've gone 5-10 years when everybody's in spread and throwing it.
Yeah.
And defenses have adjusted to smaller linebackers.
Yeah, they've gotten smaller and faster.
Playing more safeties.
Right.
And they don't have and so right now you got a bigger offensive line, and you got big offensive linemen, big tight ends running right at these little guys. The personnel on the defense has adjusted so much is a lot of times defenses don't have the personnel just to take the pounding. They don't have it. They've gone to, to quicker, smaller defensive players, and that's a problem. But Kentucky, I've always said all along, if I was coaching high school football, I would make a trip to the Naval Academy or to the Army Academy and get their offense. That triple option, wishbone, Navy, Army, Air Force, they win 8, 9, 10 games every year with less talent than anybody they're playing. Mm-hmm. It's consistent. Nobody can figure it out because it's hard to play against a certain style all year, and then all of a sudden in 1 week you got to prepare for. And now at Kentucky, and you don't have the personnel, or a Navy or Army, or now Baltimore in the pros. You got the best defensive coaches in the world, and they can't stop it because they don't have the personnel anymore.
Yeah.
They just don't have the personnel, and then you become elite if you have a Lamar Jackson, or a Lynn Bowden is a fantastic athlete.
Yeah. Also what's interesting about this,
but it won't last.
No, it won't. This is what we see in football. We see evolutions. We see an offense or a defense that works exceptionally well for a couple of years, and then people make the adjustments to it, and then it becomes just another offense.
But that's exactly what I would be doing in high school.
Oh yeah.
I mean, if I didn't have and how many people have Division I quarterbacks?
No.
If I'm if I don't have elite talent, I'm running it like that. Mm-hmm. Just in triple option or wishbone and things like that, just running at people, and that shortens the game. It brings a toughness to a game too, and it's a style that is it exciting. Baltimore's exciting because of Lamar Jackson. They do a lot of neat stuff at it. Kentucky may not be the most exciting team to watch, but I respect it. Mm-hmm. I respect the heck out of somebody running something that they're going to run it, and you can't stop it. And Louisville could not stop it, but in fairness, Vanderbilt couldn't stop it. Yeah. Tennessee really didn't stop it all that much either. Yeah. And teams just can't, most teams can't stop it.
To your point about the high school thing, real quick, I missed on the fact that I thought Taylor County was going to go to Bell County and win. I mean, Bell County runs that triple option offense kind of stuff.
Yep.
And they've done it, as you mentioned, I mean, the whole time Dudley Hilton's been there, that's what they've run. But Taylor County doesn't throw the ball a whole lot. They they run it too. And you see this. An interesting thing is you look over here in the high school state finals. We have a bunch of Eastern Kentucky teams in there. Belfry beat DeSales in overtime, which surprised me. I really thought DeSales was going to win that game. And over in Eastern Kentucky these days, what you see is a bunch of big dudes running over little dudes. I mean, that's kind of the way it is.
Right. Not everybody can be Oklahoma.
No, not everybody.
And not everybody has to patch. If you got a Patrick Mahomes in Kansas City, you don't play that way.
No.
I mean, those are special talents. But I'm just saying, if you are limited in your quarterback spot and limited talent-wise, like the academies are, like Kentucky is with their quarterbacks are, it's a pretty good way to play because it's hard for teams to adjust to defend it.
Might as well get another running back in the game instead of a quarterback who can't really do anything.
Exactly right.
Well, real quick, meanwhile, WKU rallied to beat Middle Tennessee. I thought they were in trouble in that game a couple of times.
Again, it's another weather game that, sometimes the weather can be an equalizer.
Yeah.
And Middle Tennessee is not having a great year, but it's a rivalry game, and it took 2 touchdowns in the fourth quarter for Western to come back and win, but give them credit, they won.
Right.
In horrible conditions, really.
Yeah, Saturday was just ugly.
It was a terrible, terrible day to I'm sure it wasn't awful to play in. It just kind of be fun, especially with the turf now. I kind of miss the days with the grass.
Oh, yeah.
In grass.
Belly slides in the mud.
There'd been mud, and you couldn't even tell the uniforms. But Kentucky doesn't go. Most schools now, it's all this turf stuff. But just a fabulous job by Tyson Helton. I mean, 8 wins after losing to Central Arkansas.
Yeah.
And to come back and 3 in a row to end it, and just a fantastic job of coaching that he's and now and of course that's the dilemma that Western is always going to be under.
Yeah.
If you do a good job at Western football like Jeff Brom, Tyson Helton, then you're going to be a candidate people are going to come after.
Well, and for Tyson Helton, there's going to be plenty of opportunities out there for him. We've got 3 SEC coaches who have bit the dust. We have Washington's coach that's out. There are reports that his brother is probably going to be out at USC if he's not already.
I would be surprised he'd leave after a year.
I would be too. I really would be. But as we've seen in some other circumstances, that you might be able to stick around too long.
You can. That is true. But also, you can also find out it's grass isn't always greener.
Oh, and definitely not, especially when you're talking about going to some of these schools that have openings because the expectations are way overboard.
That's correct. Arkansas, Missouri, they're not necessarily doing a lot of winning.
No.
I think Jeff Brom probably made the right decision in Purdue, but, he's had 2 straight losing seasons too.
Yeah.
And, you get a lot more money, but its expectations are tough as well there too.
Yeah. Well, anyway, and also, I don't know that Mark Stoops is interviewing for another job. He's certainly getting one if he wants it.
He did interview. He met with Florida State.
Yeah.
It was a week ago Monday in Cincinnati and turned them down.
Yeah.
And I'm sure he'll get an extension after this year.
Well, I would say this, Kentucky's success with the arrangement that they have running their offense is probably one of the reasons some of these other SEC coaches are out.
Yeah, and the question would be with Stoops, if he's going to stay, how many schools will commit to that type of offense?
Yeah, that's a good question.
It's worked for, like I said, the academies and things like that, and it's worked for Kentucky this year. But do you go to that? And if you go to that, you're not going to get any of the pro quarterbacks that come in.
Well, and that's usually one of the knocks on a run-based program is it's hard to get the wide receivers and the quarterbacks to come to your school because they're looking to get the ball or throw the ball.
That's exactly right. And the offense clearly doesn't work well if you get behind.
No.
And Kentucky hadn't been behind, but the only thing I would question about Kentucky is have they played a really, really good team during this run?
No.
They played Georgia in the rain, but have they played a really, really good team? And Louisville is much better, and Louisville won 7 games, but they had a tremendous defensive weakness.
Yeah,
that's the only thing. I still think you need to be balanced, but absent having a good quarterback, this type of play, I think it's very effective right now.
Yeah, well, let me put it this way. I love the running game as a fan of sports, and I love good defense. And maybe it is easier to play good defense when people are just, meaning score-wise, it looks like you are, when people are just running the ball on you instead of throwing it all over the field. I'm not really excited by the 54-51 football games.
Right.
They have a lot of scoring, but I don't think it's necessarily great football.
What about the Alabama-Auburn game? Did you like that one? 48-45.
It was ugly football in a lot of ways. It really was in a lot of ways ugly football. I don't know. It's.
I liked it. I liked that, but there was turnovers. Blocked. Missed kicks, interception returns, 2 of those. There was, but I still thought it was pretty intriguing.
Yeah, so that kind of falls into the category last week when we were talking about 2 bad basketball teams playing in the first round of a district tournament, and it may be a close game, but it wasn't necessarily good.
Right.
I kind of thought that Auburn-Alabama game,
but they weren't bad football teams.
They were not, but they were. But I don't think they necessarily played well in a lot of ways because, and I think that comes out sometimes in these rivalry games where mistakes are made because of the rivalry itself. It's an exciting game, but I don't necessarily look at it and say either team played great football. But, in the case of Alabama, I guess they have an excuse. To be honest with you, Auburn should have won that game by more if they actually played the way they should have.
Probably, or if Alabama doesn't throw 2 interception returns.
Well, that's my point, though, is that they don't have their starting quarterback in there.
Alabama ran up and down the field on the great Auburn defense.
Yeah, well, I would say that's a debatable option there too to call Auburn's defense great this year.
Yeah,
but anyway, I guess I like defensive slobber knocking kind of football. Like when you're going to talk about this 49ers Ravens game at the end, I loved that game. I mean, it was ugly, but I loved it too.
Yeah.
This is Brown Sports Bag brought to you by McDonald's of Glasgow. We'll be right back.
Presented by McDonald's of Glasgow, it's back to the studio with James and John, the Brown Sports Bag.
Well, John, as you mentioned at the top of the show, we will have no more basketball coaches on for a while at least because they're coaching. It's the opening of the high school basketball season starting tonight. We talked to Stinson last week. They are playing at Monroe County, boys and girls, tonight.
On the way right now.
On the way, yes. And then Caverna is hosting Fort Knox for the 15th consecutive year, I think, to open their season. The girls start at 5:30. I'm going to head over there as soon as we're done. And if anybody wants to keep up with what's going on, you can follow 1047 The Score on Twitter for some updates. And then later you can look on our website and we'll have some photos and info from the games that are today. But while we're here talking about this, let's talk about some things that we think we might see during the course of this year basketball season in this area. And I think let's start on the boys' side because I think Barron County has probably one of the most potentially exciting players and maybe one of the potentially best players in the 4th region in Aiden Niken. People might remember him from soccer season where he led the state in scoring. But he's a heck of a basketball player. He's a good athlete, good size. Probably still needs to improve on his range. That was one of the things that kind of held him back a little bit last year, maybe. But he's only a sophomore, so he's got plenty of room to grow. And I think that kind of opens the door for Barron in a lot of ways because they've got some pretty decent players or good players around him. And I just feel like teams defensively are probably going to focus on trying to limit Niken. How do you kind of see the potential for their season developing?
I think it all depends on shooting.
Yeah,
that's the big question mark. Does Barron have enough outside shooting? They had trouble last year scoring.
Yeah,
even with Bandy and with Aiden Niken. They had trouble getting 60 points, and it's just because of it's just hard. If you're not making outside shots, the lane becomes more and more congested.
Right.
And the question is, have the players that are back, and most of the players are back, have they improved their outside shot? And two, roles. You got to figure out what you're good at, and sometimes players have a hard time understanding what their roles are.
Yeah,
and I think Coach Cunningham has probably 9 or 10 players that are in the mix. Mm-hmm. That's not easy sometimes. Trust me. I would rather have 7 than 10.
Yeah, and that's the kind of thing. If you play an up and down style, it's fine to have 9 or 10 in the mix because you're going to be swapping them out regularly.
And even that's hard in a 32-minute game.
Yeah, that's right.
But it's much more easier in a faster-paced game. Barron tends not to play that way.
That's what I was going to say.
Because of the personnel. So, they got to figure out roles. But the absolute number one key to their success is outside shooting. Somebody and hopefully a couple kids have got to be able to knock down some shots. If not, then Barron needs to be a dominant rebounding team, offensive rebound and so forth. And we'll see. But I think that is the question mark.
That is the potential for them, that they could be a dominant rebounding team.
They better.
I think with Niken and Bandy and a couple of their guards are good rebounders as well. So they could fill that role. But they do need to find some people who can hit those shots this year to take some of the pressure off because it got too easy for teams to just pack it in and cause a lot of problems for them offensively last year. Meanwhile, the Glasgow Scotties, I think folks have them basically third in the region behind the perennial powers of Bowling Green and Warren Central. And, look, when you look at it, they got Sorrell back. They have Haney back. They have Franklin, who will be able to play the whole year. He did not play football.
Kirkpatrick.
Yep, they have Kirkpatrick back. So they had no problem scoring last year. Kingry's back. They had no problem scoring last year. I would say their biggest problem was without Franklin, sometimes defending inside, and
they're big.
And they're big.
Yep.
So, I mean, I think they are a threat to maybe finally get through. I mean, you look at the last couple of years; they've played some great games against Warren Central in the regional tournament.
Well, they got the parts.
Yes.
They got an outstanding point guard, which you need.
Yep, Nick Sorrell.
They've got size on the inside and a scorer who can flat score too in Franklin.
Yep.
We got a shooter in Kirkpatrick. It's the only question. Well, I think there's one real question for Glasgow is perhaps depth.
I would say
they're going to be good. They're going to win 20 games or more. They're going to be good because they got, and plus they got experience. So they got pretty much, you can check all the boxes. But that doesn't mean you're going to win it because Warren Central also checks all the boxes. And Bowling Green has size and guards and so forth like that.
Yeah.
And that's where it gets tricky sometimes. I don't have any doubt of what Glasgow can do. I think they can be really good. I think they have a fabulous year and not win it and get beat by somebody who is equally as good.
Yeah.
But I don't have any doubt they're going to be really good. They don't have a very many weaknesses. Maybe they don't have the depth, but I think they got enough players. Let me be honest with you. If they stay healthy, then they're going to be right there at the end. Whether or not they win it or not, sometimes you just face Warren Central's top in one poll, they're number 3 in the state.
Yeah.
I mean, they're top 10 in the state, and so is Bowling Green.
Yeah. And that's the thing. I think they've lost in overtime to Warren Central 2 years in a row in the regional tournament. 1 year, Dalvin Smith, senior year, he got hurt before the end of that game.
Right.
So then you're kind of left with the question, at some point in time, you have to hope or you have to believe that Glasgow can break through and win that game.
Yeah, I mean,
and as I pointed out, Franklin was not around last year.
If you get it to overtime, you can win those games.
Yeah,
it's just a matter of a shot here or a shot there.
Right.
So yeah, I mean, Glasgow has the region still runs through Central and Bowling Green. I mean, you're crazy if you don't think that they've won it 15 straight years. Pretty much. Greenwood, another Bowling Green team, slipped up and won one of those. So it's going to go through those. Warren Central was state semifinals last year, and they got almost everybody back. So they're going to be hard to handle. They know how to win. Bowling Green's got all that going too. But Glasgow is good enough to be a threat to them. They are a legitimate threat. They're not the favorite, which is actually a good thing for them.
Right.
But they do have the pieces.
I think your point about depth, though, is critical, though, because going back to what we were just talking about, playing 8 or 9 players, Bowling Green and Warren Central will do that. They will try to wear a team down, which is what they usually do effectively. A lot of times you see teams close to them coming into the fourth quarter, and then it doesn't finish close. And so Glasgow's going to have probably a couple of younger players who they can trust to put out there at the end of the year to handle the ball. They may not have to score. They will need to have to deal with the pressure and that kind of thing, probably, to take some of the pressure off of Sorrell and Kirkpatrick, especially at the guard positions, I think.
Yep.
Meanwhile, on the girls' side, we'll start with Glasgow, Lady Scotties, because Stinson made your ears perk up when he was in here last week, because what we just talked about with the Barron County Trojans, what their weakness is, or we need to see if they've improved upon. Stinson thinks his team's going to have the outside shooting necessary this year to take the pressure off of his inside players. If that's the case, that might be pretty scary for the competition.
Yeah, that's been their Achilles heel the last couple of years. They've been big. They've been a tremendous rebounding team, a really good defensive team, but they've had trouble scoring.
Right.
I mean, that's since Bree Glover has basically left. And Bartley, they've had trouble scoring.
Yeah.
And mainly it's lack of outside shooting. And, Coach Stinson talked the other day. Last Monday, he said that's the one area that he thinks they're much better at. He said it's probably his best shooting team since,
2012.
2012. And that did get my interest because I knew the McMurtry kid is a good shooter.
Yep.
But he was mentioning some other people. And if they have consistent outside shooting, that really moves them up.
Yep.
Because be honest with you, they have just not been good enough offensively the last couple of years to win it. They were good enough defensively, but basketball is you got to have both. You got to be able to score when you need to, and also to stop people. They've been able to stop people. They have not been able to put up the numbers in terms of scoring. And so, if they have that shooting, that really, really moves them up.
Yeah, I mean, Bowling Green will have a couple of inside players who can probably match up with Ashanti Gore pretty well. They may or may not be able to stop her. I doubt they will be able to stop her. But, I mean, they've got a couple of good inside players. They've got a couple of good guards. But their whole team is predicated on making you make mistakes with their pressure and that kind of stuff. If Glasgow, and this is before we're talking about the Trojanettes here, but if Glasgow can have a couple of people that can make Bowling Green defend everywhere, that makes the inside game a lot more
and that's
effective.
the other area that's been a little shaky for them.
Yeah.
Is since they lost Ellie Bartley.
Yeah.
Is the point guard play against pressure.
Right.
And there's not a lot of teams that pressure anymore. For whatever reason. I don't know why, but a lot of teams don't pressure. Well, Bowling Green pressures.
Yeah.
And Glasgow just was not competitive the 2 times they played Bowling Green last year. They couldn't really get the ball up the floor.
Right.
And Barron, midway through last year, decided just to increase their pressure, which I think turned them up another notch, to be honest with you. That's the other question of Glasgow. It's their outside shooting, and do they have enough guards to handle good pressure?
Yeah.
They have experienced guards, and that helps. Do they have that point guard who can make plays like Ellie Bartley and people like that have been in the past? We'll see.
Yeah. Well, and they'll get that test in their district, too, because the Trojanettes, I mean, we know they're going to pressure this year because they don't really have size. And, Piper talked about that. Their best way of winning is probably going to be getting the other team to give them the ball.
Somewhat. I agree. They don't have Mackenzie England size.
Yeah.
But they're big enough, I'll be honest with you.
Yeah.
They have enough. They have post players. So they're not little in any chance. Now, what Barron's got is they got 2 really good guards.
Yeah.
Elizabeth Bertram is arguably the best player in the region.
Yeah.
With experience, too. And, she's already committed to Camelsville. Mm-hmm. So she can play, and everybody knows she can score. And then you have the Murphy girl, who's only an 8th grader, but she got some serious experience last year at the end of the year as a 7th grader.
Yeah.
She is a good player. So I don't have any doubts that she can play. And then you throw a lot of Carly Delk, who played well at times last year. You have her. You have Raven Ennis. You have a lot of kids who were more role players that had to play a bigger role. I still think Barron's going to be really good. I think they're top 3 in the region. I think we know Bowling Green's probably number 1. I think Glasgow and Barron it'd be interesting to see how they shake out. They probably split this year. I think they're 2-3, and I think Logan has a really good set of guards. I think Logan is better than Logan thinks they are at times.
I'm with you because I've seen them in the regional tournament.
Yeah. They got size inside, and they got a pair of guards that are as good as anybody. I just don't know if Logan believes they're as good as they are.
Right.
I think they're good, and I think the sleeper, I think Metcalf's going to be good.
Yeah. Now, talking about a team, not to get too far off the track, well, let me bring this back to the Trojanettes real quick. I am kind of concerned about their shooting as well, though, coming into this year, because they did Bertram can shoot the 3, but she may be asked to do so much that she doesn't get a chance to just get good open threes.
Right.
They have a couple of other players who can shoot, but they've been able to play with players who could get them the ball where they needed it.
Right.
They're going to be asked to do different things this year. So I think that might be a mystery. Their outside shooting this year might be
It could be. I think that's a good point. It could be. You have to remember, Mackenzie England made every big shot in the world late in the season.
Right.
Every big shot in the world. So, their outside shooting, I think, is a little bit, I think could be an issue.
Yeah.
I think they've got enough, but until you see it in pressure times, they don't have. I wouldn't say they have 3 or 4 just knockdown 3-point shooters, but I think they're better than most teams.
Yeah, probably so, and that kind of goes back to the pressure part of it. They probably do want to get more baskets in transition than be forced to try to play some sort of half-court sets and that kind of stuff.
I agree with that.
Now, back to Metcalf real quick, though. You want to talk about a team that can probably shoot the lights out this year. They could last year, and most of those kids are back.
They are. They got they're got young guards, experienced guards that can shoot, and they're not very big, but they I think. There's not many teams in the region that shoot it as well as they can shoot it.
Right.
I think they got some confidence last year. Got to the regional tournament. Of course, this is TJ This is her first go around as a head coach, but I think she's prepared for it, and she's been the assistant over there for a couple of years, so I think she'll easily move in that transition. And I think that's another team that's a sleeper. I don't know if they're ready to win a region, but I think they are ready to get to the region and be competitive.
Yeah, this year there are 3 teams. I think if they're in the regional tournament on the girls' side, and so you look down and you get them in the matchup in the bracket, you don't. A lot of times they'd be teams where, because of recent years, you'd look at and you go, that should be a win.
Right.
Logan's one of those. I think Metcalf's one of those, and I actually think Franklin Simpson will be another one if they get there, because I think from what I understand, they're close.
They're better. I know. I've talked to Lex. They're better.
Yeah. Now I don't think they're necessarily good, but I think if you catch them in the right night and things are clicking,
he's going to be playing more like Franklin played 10 years ago.
Yeah.
But it's a big jump from going from 5 or 6 wins to getting up that 18-20 and competing. That's a huge jump. They'll be much better. They got a player out that didn't play last year. And they'll be better. I can see Franklin winning 15, 18 games.
Yeah.
But I can't – I'd be surprised for them to be a threat to knock off the Barons or the Bowling Greens.
Yeah, I'm just saying that
but they'll be better.
I'm just saying there's some teams.
And Lex knows what he's doing. And he knows what he's doing playing a style that I think he's comfortable with.
Yeah, I kind of think about Todd County a few years ago where we didn't see them all year, and they got to the regional tournament, and I was like, they've got some actually good players. I mean, their record was like 500, but they had some actually good players.
Right.
I think of Franklin like that this year.
Right.
I don't know that they're going to win a game. I'm just saying, don't be surprised if it's not the game you thought it was going to be.
No, I think Franklin and Logan's going to come out of that district.
Oh, yeah. Well, this is Brown Sports Bag brought to you by McDonald's of Glasgow. We'll be right back.
Presented by McDonald's of Glasgow, it's back to the studio with James and John, the Brown Sports Bag.
Well, meanwhile, the Louisville Cardinals, man, it is a great time to be a Louisville basketball fan because the Cardinals are the number 1 team in the AP poll after we knew they were going to get it as long as they didn't lose to the WKU on Friday night, and they didn't. Because Duke messed around and lost in overtime to Stephen F. Austin
At home
on a pretty interesting play at the end. So then Louisville wins. They're number 1, and the women's team knocked off Oregon last week and jumped up to number 2 in the AP poll.
Yeah, it's remarkable to say the least. We'll just talk about the men first of all, where they have come from.
Oh yeah,
I mean another Chris Mack. No, I don't know how things are going to end, but to come from where they were 2 years ago, when it still, looked like maybe you can get the death penalty,
right? And
all the stuff trying to clean up from Coach Pitino and some of the stuff went on. It's incredible to say the least to be number 1 in the country. Now they won't stay number 1. Nobody does in college basketball.
No, they'll lose a game this week to somebody.
Well, they play Michigan this week.
Well,
and Michigan's 8-0, and Michigan has moved up to number 6 in the country. So I could see them losing to Michigan because Louisville is good. I don't think they're a number 1 team in the nation, but I don't know who is. I'll be honest with you. Probably the best team that I've seen, maybe Kansas. I thought they played well in the Mountain Classic. Louisville's top 10. I don't think they're number 1, but it's nice. It's nice to go from where they were to temporarily be number 1.
Yeah.
So that's neat. And then the women, like I said, Jeff Walls is, I can't tell you very many coaches better than him.
Right.
And to lose Asia Durr and some of the players they lost, and now, to beat the easily the number 1 team in the nation is Oregon. Oregon is by far the prohibited number 1 team in the nation. Got the best player in the country.
Yeah.
And to beat them on a neutral floor, it says a lot.
Yeah, I think they beat them by 10 too. I mean, they did. They were
up 16 at one time.
Yeah, they were suffocating Oregon on defense.
Yep.
I mean, they weren't giving them anything.
Quite impressive.
Yeah, I mean, so Yeah, if you're a Louisville basketball fan, rejoice. Have a good time. Forget that football game that happened on Saturday.
Yeah, I mean, with college basketball, it's all temporary. I mean, it's not going to – I mean, you play too many games. It's too early for it to stay that way.
Yeah.
But, it's a nice feather temporarily in your cap.
Yeah. Now, what did you think about the Louisville WKU men's game on Friday?
Again, it's another game that I don't think was played great. I mean, Western made – 2 threes the entire game? They were 2 for 17 or 1 for 17, and you just can't beat a team like Louisville if you shoot it that bad.
Right.
And Western was never in the game. Louisville jumped on them early and basically controlled the game throughout. Western made one little move and I think got it within about 8 with 6 or 7 minutes to go, but never really. They couldn't make enough shots to threaten Louisville.
Yeah.
And I'm not saying Louisville played good. I mean, Louisville played okay. They played well early, and then after that, they kind of flatlined themselves. But from a Topper perspective, I think it's a little disappointing because they had a shot against a really you don't get to play a top 5 team every day.
Yeah.
But to shoot it that poorly. It's just hard, and I think Coach said it after the game. It's hard to dig yourself out of a hole against a top team when you start bad and you don't shoot it well.
Yeah, well, and I'll tell you this. I think Charles Bassey was impressive in the game. I think everybody could walk away from it and say, he
held his own against a big front line that Louisville has.
Yeah, I mean, because in that situation, I mean, he's at his size, he was more or less playing by himself. Because even the other big men for WKU are not actually big.
No,
they're fairly athletic, but they're more small forwards than they are power forwards or centers.
Right.
And so Bassey looked pretty good against Louisville. The things that we've talked about, and I'm probably all Hilltoppers people have talked about over the last few months, is the fact that, I mean, they still don't really have a point guard. They're waiting on a point guard. The NCAA is busy hanging out with James Wiseman or whatever his name is down in Memphis. Too busy to hanging out with them to decide on Kenny Cooper getting to play for WKU.
Though I do think the freshman's played pretty well.
Yeah.
Jordan Ross.
Yeah.
He's played pretty well. But, that's the one missing ingredient. And, it's Cam Justice has he's played well overall, but the 2 losses, he's shot terrible.
Yeah, what was he, 2 of 12 on Friday, something like that?
He was 1 out of whatever in their loss in the Virgin Islands.
Yeah.
Like 1 for 10.
Yeah.
And, those are when you don't have to make them all. You don't have to make 50%, but three out of 9 is a lot better than 0 for 9.
Yeah, you got to make better than 10%.
Yeah, and it's just when you're playing a team like Louisville, you just cannot. When you're an underdog like Western, you just cannot overcome that type of shooting deficit.
A lot of times in a game like that too, especially you're playing the number 2 team in the nation, and they're in the state with you or whatever, and there's a bit of a rivalry in men's basketball between Louisville and WKU. But another thing that I think always has to happen is your best players have to play as well as they can, but you always probably have to have somebody who plays above what you expect.
But you can't have your best players not play well.
Yeah, no. And so WKU had a couple of their best players not play well, and nobody else really filled that gap to help them out.
That's correct. Now they get redemption. They have Arkansas coming up.
Yeah.
At Diddle.
Yeah.
And so they can bounce back against a good Arkansas team.
Yeah.
But, it's just I do think Western has a shot to be a legitimate top 25 team.
Uh-huh.
But the more I watch them, I do think they need the point guard transfer that's not eligible right now.
Yeah. Well, I mean, and who knows? There was some discussion before, on Thursday or Wednesday, I think it was Wednesday, that the NCAA could hand down a ruling. I think Stansbury said Wednesday he thought they were going to hear from him on Wednesday. I don't know whether or not they didn't hear from him or what. Because, the question was, if you hear from them, will he play Friday? And he said, well, yeah, obviously.
It'd be nice to get him before Christmas because there's going to be an adjustment period.
Yeah.
Because there's going to be, again, what you'll go through is roles have to change.
Yeah.
Minutes have to be divided. The question is, it looks like to me somebody, I got the feeling he's going to go in the starting lineup.
Oh, yeah.
So that means somebody's coming out.
Right.
And Josh Anderson is already taking that hit this year. He's not starting. He started most of last year. He's coming off the bench. So you have all those little things that often affect a team's climate, culture, and so forth.
Right.
So that always takes time as well. The little things that people don't normally see.
Yeah.
Tends to matter over time.
Yeah. We haven't mentioned Kentucky at all. I haven't. And, I mean, they've kind of slipped under the radar a little bit, I think.
Yeah, they're playing a little bit better.
Yeah.
They're playing better. Now, they haven't had any big games for us to talk about. They're beating teams they should beat.
Yeah.
They got a big injury. The transfer broke his hand or something, so he's
Right.
out. But Nick Richards is playing really good.
Yeah.
And the point guard is playing. Higgins is a really good player.
Yep.
So they'll be like most Cal's teams. They'll evolve over time, and they'll be really good by the end of the year.
How tough do you think the SEC is this year? I mean, it proved to be a pretty good conference last year in men's basketball.
Yeah, I don't think it's as good as it was last year.
Yeah.
Tennessee was really good. They lost a lot of players.
Yeah.
Kentucky's Kentucky. Texas A&M I don't think is very good. Arkansas is okay. They got a new coach. I like the coach.
Yeah.
Florida's supposed to be better, but they hadn't really played like it yet.
Right.
They got hammered by Florida State.
Yes, they did.
Georgia has not done a lot. It's Tom Crean's second year. They went out to Maui Classic and lost twice. They got a great player, probably the one or two draft pick in the country behind Wiseman, but they've just been okay. Nobody really jumps out in the SEC right now.
One thing about the SEC last year was there were quite a few older players in the league last year.
And Auburn was good, but I don't think they're as good.
No, and so a lot of those guys are gone. I mean, it was kind of like last year was pretty much a perfect storm for the SEC and having experienced players that had stuck around and they played well, at the end of their careers.
Right.
And that made the SEC more
it's
interesting
still
than
good.
usual.
It's good.
Yeah.
It's still good. I don't think it's as good as it was last year.
Right. Well, this is Brown Sports Bag brought to you by McDonald's of Glasgow. We'll be right back.
Presented by McDonald's of Glasgow, it's back to the studio with James and John, the Brown Sports Bag.
Well, John, I really hope that we see the Ravens and the 49ers playing in the Super Bowl. And I thought there were a couple of things about that game Sunday that I thought were pretty interesting. One was I actually think the 49ers played a defense that worked against the Ravens for the most part.
Who won?
Well, I mean, the Ravens won 20-17. That gets to the second thing that I was most impressed with. I think the Ravens' final drive went almost 7 minutes.
Yes.
And that was the part. So I actually thought the 49ers played good defense against the Ravens. We will remember Robbie Gould missed the field goal. That would have put that basically would have been the same amount of points.
Yeah. Long one though.
It was, but it wasn't as long as the one that Tucker hit for the winner.
I know, but Tucker is he's the best in the world at that.
Yeah, he apparently is.
Yeah, he is.
But so seriously though, I thought the 49ers played a good defense against the Ravens.
They did.
And then I also thought the Ravens, when it got down to the brass tacks, did they go for fourth down twice on that drive, I think?
Yep.
One was a 4th and 2, one was a 4th and 1.
That's nothing to them.
No, it's not. And you look at their numbers, they go for fourth down a lot.
The only way to beat the Ravens, in my opinion, is you got to get ahead.
Yes.
And you got to get ahead late and be ahead. I'm talking about 2 touchdowns or whatever, and make them throw when they don't want to throw.
Yeah.
Because if not, they just nobody can stop them right now.
Right.
In San Francisco, you're right. They have a defense that's probably best designed to do that. They've got a tremendous defensive line, but they couldn't. Lamar Jackson is the MVP of the league.
Yeah.
Now, is it sustainable? I don't know.
Yeah.
Right now, he's 22 and faster than anybody on the field, and he doesn't really take a lot of hard hits.
Right.
He gets hit, but not. It's not. He's not getting blindsided or anything like that. Now the question is, when he's 26 and still running a 4.3, he runs a 4.5 maybe or 4.4.
Yeah.
Can he continue this pace? But he is by far the most dynamic, best player in the league right now. I think it's hands down.
The interesting thing about also that game yesterday, it was bad weather.
Perfect for him.
Perfect for their running game, but I did think that one of Lamar Jackson's weaknesses as a thrower kind of got accentuated by the conditions because he doesn't really. I don't know if it's his grip or whatever, or how big his hands are. I have no idea. But sometimes he doesn't really throw the ball with the best spirals and that kind of stuff. Actually, most of the time he doesn't. They get to where they're supposed to be.
Yep.
They just don't get there looking pretty. And I thought that weather kind of accentuated that a little bit. He had some struggles throwing some of the passes that he's been hitting on. But back to your point about his speed and whatnot, not getting hit, the only time you really ever see him get hit hard is when he actually gets sacked.
Yeah.
If he's running the ball, he hardly ever takes a good hit.
No, because he's in control.
Yeah.
You're not catching him from behind, so he's not getting blindsided.
Right.
And it's hard to get a direct hit on him. He's too elusive.
Yeah.
He's an incredible. He's playing. I mean, this is the way he was at Louisville. He personally just carried that team for 2 years.
Yeah.
They couldn't stop him in college.
No.
And once they decided they're going to build their offense around him,
Yeah.
and they get the right personnel and the right coaches and go all in, he's tremendous.
Well, so one of the reasons I hope I see this game again,
And they need to draft Lynn Bowden.
Somebody does. They certainly do.
Baltimore does. Should be the backup.
Oh yeah. There you go. Yeah, because
use him out there, and also he's like their second or third string emergency quarterback.
He could be like Taysom Hill with the Saints.
That's correct.
Who is technically the third string quarterback. But they use him a lot.
30 plays a game. Yep.
Yeah, because I mean he's fast and he's physical and he can do a lot of things besides throw the football.
Yep.
But one of the main reasons I want to see that as the Super Bowl is because I just thought that game was an excellent example of two teams that are good,
well coached,
and they both are unique in what they do offensively and defensively in a lot of ways.
Yeah.
They take some risks in terms on the defensive side that pans out for them because they have the talent to do it. And on the offensive side, there's not a whole lot of difference really between the offense the Ravens run and the 49ers run other than the fact that Garoppolo can't run like that.
Right.
But in terms of the schemes and all, they're kind of similar.
Similar in terms of their focus is on they rush the ball.
Yeah.
That's the primary focus.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And pass to the tight end a lot.
That's right. And you're right. Jimmy G is not a runner like Lamar. He can scramble. He's not just locked in the pocket. No, but he's not used per se in the running game like Lamar Jackson is.
Right. And so anyway, I thought that was pretty interesting. And meanwhile, the Texans just muscled up on the Patriots on Sunday night, and that game was pretty ugly. I was a little bit surprised by how that worked out. Because the Patriots have had the Texans' number through the years, no matter how good the Texans have been. But that was not the case last night.
No, Deshaun Watson is really good.
He is good.
Yeah, ask Nick Saban.
Yeah.
He's really good.
Yeah, for real.
And New England has taken a step back offensively. Losing Gronk has been huge.
Yeah.
And plus they've lost a couple of offensive linemen. They really have no speed on the outside, and they're really struggling offensively. Can they get it turned around? I never bet against them.
No,
But, they're kind of running out of time, and I don't see where they're going to get the speed or the tight end to fix it. But, they're still New England.
Yeah, they have – you can only scheme so much with the players you have, and they may have schemed themselves to the point where that's it.
Yeah, right. I think they're at least the third best team now in the AFC. I think it's Baltimore and it's Baltimore. New England is somewhere. I've gone blank, but
are you going to put the Bills ahead of the Patriots?
No. I will not. No, they do play again.
Yeah, I know. That's going to be interesting.
Kansas City, Baltimore, Kansas City. I think
with
are better.
Mahomes at quarterback. Yeah.
Yep.
That's going to be interesting when they play the Bills again because the Bills are. The Bills made the Cowboys look pretty bad in a lot of ways on Thursday, and
another team that wins ugly.
They do.
Fabulous defense, just so offense. Quarterback that can make some plays with his legs, just so. They're like the Titans are the same way. Titans just you can bet on the Titans to be 8-8, 9-7 every year, but I will say since they switched the quarterback, Tannehill has been a huge difference.
Yes, he has.
He gets the ball to the right people. He makes plays, and it seems like that has been the one spark that's the difference. Everything else, it seems to me, is the same there. Same running back, same defense.
Yeah.
The guy pulling the trigger is the one that's made a big difference.
I don't think Ryan Tannehill is better than Marcus Mariota. I think Marcus Mariota had lost all confidence in his ability to play because he was playing scared. He was not playing the game with any kind of confidence. And also, I think what has happened is with the Titans, they put Tannehill in there. They don't expect certain things from him, I think, just because of draft status or whatever, or hype. They just give the ball to Derrick Henry and dare the other team to stop him, and they've done that a lot more with Tannehill in there than they did with Mariota.
True, but Tannehill's making plays too.
He's making the plays that are there, and I think that's kind of the difference is Tannehill is playing – I mean, he has nothing to lose.
Well, he's the first-round pick too.
Yeah.
First-round pick at Miami.
That is true.
And they invested a lot of money in him, so he's not like he's some bum off the street. He can play.
Yeah, and maybe he is better than Mariota. I just think Mariota had hit the point where he had lost just all faith in himself.
I agree with that.
Well, this is Brown Sports Bag brought to you by McDonald's of Glasgow. We'll be back next week.
Thanks for listening, and be sure and join James and John once again next Monday at 4 for the Brown Sports Bag, a local weekly sports machine presented by McDonald's of Glasgow.
Coming soon to your FM dial, this is Fox Sports Radio, WCDS Glasgow, AM 1230.